The Exchange on Deep Dive.
It is 27 minutes past 7 o'clock. And as always, we get into our community engagement. We call this program Ward Call, and each and every Tuesday, we connect with your local leaders. And we want to see what's happening in your communities. Are they making a difference? And those elected officials are there for a reason. We're joined by different councillors each and every week to take a look at issues around their various wards. Now, we have been talking about the budgets, and it is budget season. So this week we continue on as we want to focus on budget performance from January to August. This evening I will be joined by Councillor Temany Utete for Ward 45, as well as Councillor Womberai Ishe Nende for Ward 27. Councillor Nende is in the studio, and Councillor Utete will be joining us on the phone lines. Let me welcome Councillor Nende to the studio. Good evening and welcome, Councillor Nende. Good to have you on our ward call.
Thank you very much, Rumbi. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So as we get into this important discussion, give us an overview of your ward, of Ward 27. Which areas does that encompass? And then what's the overview of your ward's performance when it comes to budget from that January to June period?
Okay, thank you very much. Ward 27 comprises of Glenora B, the Mshabande area, B-Top, Infield area code Makonye, Masimbi, Glenora C Extension, Glenora C Rockville, and there is also a place called Glenora D, as well as the Glenora Flats, which are situated right next to Farai Leisure Center. Panozipa Fat.
Aha, Pafpat. So, okay, I remember there was Gomori Marasta and all that.
Yes,
That's in your constituency?
Yes, it's in our constituency.
I see. Okay, so looking at Ward 27, give us an overview of your ward's budget performance. Tishitarisa period January to June.
Okay, so the whole city has been affected by the lack of approval of the budget. It was approved way after the mid of the year, which is in August. So it affects the budget performance because people will be operating outside the confines of the budget. So in terms of financing of activities, it won't be legal for us to then finance certain items because they have to be pegged by the budget that should have taken to the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Finance had not gone to the extent of making sure that the budget is approved. So we will be operating using the working capital that will be around for the city, and the absence of a billing system is also affected the operations of the city of Harare. But we had made strides. We have had several meetings where we deliberated and made serious resolutions with regards to having an enterprise resource system, an ERP. But we are still having hurdles in terms of how it comes back to be implemented, because it also involves the local government also coming on board to say this must be accepted for the city of Harare.
Why was it such a delayed process, the approval of the budget? Because you're talking about, things that were supposed to have been approved for January only being approved in August. How does that then work out? Or what were the reasons for that delay? And how do you then catch up with some of those activities?
So it's a cat and mouse situation whereby the city, through the budgeting process, it's like now we have already commenced for the 2025, but you realize that everything that has been done, we have made consultations with the wards, the 45 wards. We've made consultations with the sectors, the youth, women, business, small to medium enterprises, people living with disabilities. We have gone past all those areas, and we have everything in line in terms of the budget. Like you said, it's a budget season, but once we are done, we will then take all those inputs, and once the approval comes from council, it then goes to the ministry. But the ministry will be having serious scrutiny in terms of their requirements, and they'll come up with very funny reasons not to then make sure that the budget for Harare is approved in time. Yet, it's the biggest metropolitan province in Zimbabwe, and the issues that are bedeviling the city are so gigantic relative to the growth expansion that has happened over the past years. So it must be an area of focus that must be prioritized at government level. But we always have that gap in terms of our budget being approved.
Are you suggesting, Councillor, then that there be a skipping of procedure? Are the checks and balances not necessary? I mean, in the checking of the system, isn't there, a role and task that, we also play in putting the issues forward in a particular way and format?
The problem is the people that have interest in the city every now and then. But you realize, as councillors, we then make sure that the process that is supposed to be done is done thoroughly, and that means that the budget consultation process goes on, the inputs are taken in, the window period whereby the budget will be displayed at different districts' office is there, and is welcome to objections. Post that, if something is not of material value, is then discarded. Anything of material value is looked at, then it feeds into the budget. But once the council approves it, it then goes to the government. That's where we are having hiccups in terms of the approval of the budget. So it draws us back the issue, because these things must be prioritized. If it means having a special committee that will focus on the areas that they need to be dealt with, it will be very important for the city of Harare, because the city of Harare is very huge, and it carries a very huge responsibility in terms of shaping the narrative of what Zimbabwe is. If you are referring to Zimbabwe, you say Harare. If you are referring to USA, you say Washington. So it must be an area of priority in terms of government's focus when it comes to budgeting issues and the movement of items in terms of our service delivery.
Let's take a look at, the priority areas for spending in your ward. What were the priority areas? How did you allocate funds to those various projects, and why?
So, like I said, because priority areas are prioritized from the perspective whereby we have consultations with the residents. The residents will come up with issues to do with water, wastewater, refuse collection, recreational facilities, chief amongst other issues that they then come with. So those priority areas, they are fed into through the budget processes. Once that is done, that will also comprise the priority areas. So it's not something that we as councillors come up with, but the consultations that we call for are the ones that then feed into the priority areas to say, when we did our rounds, when we had our consultations, what are the areas, the key areas of service delivery that the people were speaking around.
And, it's almost become a broken record now. Sewage, waste management, water, or are there any other ones that I'm leaving out? Perhaps that are Ward 27 specific?
No, they are not ward specific. It's the greater Harare. So the biggest hurdle that we are facing in council in the city of Harare is the level at which the city is expanding. The margin at which the city is expanding relative to the infrastructure and development to cater for those social amenities. So you realize there is a big gap in terms of catering for that. And Harare alone cannot do it. It needs the central government to come in terms of collaborative efforts, in terms of the funding structure, in terms of making sure that once there is a requisition from the city of Harare to say we want refuse compactors, we want US dollars, because we are getting RTGS, we are getting ZIG from the residents. The monies that we do have, we need to make sure that when we make payments, there are clear acquittals with the Reserve Bank, and we ensure that we have made purchases of the equipment. That must be followed through, and it must suffice. But the moment we have those requisitions and they go to the ministry and there is no approval, they go to PRAS, there's no approval, and when you want to have projects that capacitate and make sure that there is development in the city, you go to see that nothing suffices. You have problem in terms of growing the city.
What reason are you given for being turned down?
The reasons vary in nature. Some of the reasons are technical. Some come in terms of wording. Say perhaps they say word capacity, then it doesn't speak to what they are expecting from something that is very minor that can be spoken of through a technical committee, a thematic committee that is looking at the contracts. Because the broader thing here is make sure that we have a service delivery, and it comes in the form of ensuring that there is a removal of refuse, there is a sewer reticulation, there is supply of water. But all those things, they are at a technical level whereby they are fed into through the processes of ensuring that money flows. So finance follows a function. What is the functions that we do have in the city of Harare? We need to be dealing with sewer. We need to be dealing with provision of clean water. We need to make sure that there's decent shelter. We need to make sure that the roads are functional. We need to make sure that the drainage have been cleaned towards the rain season. All those factors are functions that are already there, that needs to be funded. So there must be an understanding at the level of central government where it also chips in, as well as in terms of our capacity to also move the things at council. There are various resolutions that speak to those issues. The EMC committee, when it sits, it makes sure that people must go and remove refuse. But the capacity in terms of the machinery, the capacitation in terms of provision of fuel, the capacitation of ensuring that equipment is bought for the city of Harare, that's where we have in head.
Someone has suggested that, all those people who are given community service, we are Ward 27.
That is not sustainable. Like I said, you see, we in the residential areas, you realize there are some areas that were designated for bachelors. But if you go to those households, you realize they've actually cut the houses into two using curtains. There are families that are living there. Others will be having the husband, the wife, 2 kids. So a place where you're supposed to be having 1 person, and there are 7 to 10 people that are living there. It means the population pressure in terms of the equipment and the infrastructure that is there is no longer capable of holding. So it means we need to then have deliberate expansion in terms of the provision. But it's an infrastructural development of high capital injection that cannot be placed on the local government tire of the city of Harare alone. It means the central government must come in deliberately for development, with the mantra that always goes, not leaving anyone behind, which is under the Sustainable Development Goals at international level. So it must be then looked into, but do we reach 2030 addressing the issues of sustainable development if the central government is also not being part and parcel of the delivery matrix of the city?
Let's talk about that a little bit more. I think in terms of, that collaborative role. As a member as a representative rather of your ward as the councillor, what strategic sort of steps can be taken in overcoming some of those issues and collaborating towards the next budget season, or to ensure that some of the priority issues are addressed?
I think for this year, I really commend the residents, because when we had our budget consultation, they came in their numbers and in their sectors, and people were speaking to the issues that do affect them in the different sectors, feeding into the budget. We had to guide in certain instances to say, do not just come and say that the monies you are charging us are too much. Suggest a feasible figure that we can then work with, and that was done, and that was the input into the budget. That is the very basic, the preliminary role of the community and the residents to shape the nature in which they want the council to go. But once those processes are done, it's divorced from the residents now. It's something that then becomes to the level of collaboration between council, the third tier, and the central government. That's why I always emphasize on this umbilical relationship between the central government and the local government. There has to be collaboration so that we make sure that we deal with the issues that are bedeviling different wards.
So umbilical relationship, not a parasitic one.
Yes.
Absolutely. The numbers are 0719 100 404. This is your ward call. And this evening we are looking still this week at budget performance issues. And I am joined currently by Councillor Wombaraeshe Nende for Ward 27. Councillor Temany Utete will be joining us via telephone in just a moment. You are very welcome to give us your thoughts on 0719 100 404 as we take a look at some of the projects, the budget performance and processes in your wards. Maybe you didn't even know that it was budget season, but it is an important season, and keep an eye open and an ear open as well for your budget consultation meetings for your wards. Now, coming back to you, Councillor Ninde, I know we often talk about challenges and obstacles and implementation of projects. Can you note any, I suppose, any extraordinary efforts or projects completed or ongoing projects currently in your ward?
For us, it is a project in the district. There's a construction of a clinic that is happening in a place called Chitubu, but it's what 28, but it's under Glenora, so that we ease the pressure on the clinic that is situated in Bacaster, next to St. Peter's, Kubatana. So that is the project that is being focused. It was in the previous budget, and they've started to capitalize it in terms of the construction, so that it culminates into another health center to also deal with the huge population pressure that is bedeviling our different wards. So if you look at after the delimitation, we now have 45 wards, and once we have all those wards, it means we should at least have 45 clinics that are coming from the city. But also, we are also trying at a level to say the city health must also make sure that there are other clinics and perhaps expansion of clinics to hospitals, so that we cater for the health needs. But in our ward, that is the flagship program that we are having, but it is under the district.
Let's talk sustainability. I mean, of that project and any other projects in the pipeline. What measures are you taking to ensure there's sustainability?
So when something is being funded through the budget, it gives us the impetus to make sure that it is seen through, because post the budget being approved, we then have a mechanism of monitoring and evaluation around the funding matrix of that project. But beyond that, the council is also open to public-private partnerships that we ensure that wherever there are willing partners out there, they come and partner with council, so that we make sure we have more programs and more developmental inclined projects that will help the communities we are living in. That's where we call in non-state actors to also come and partner with the city of Harare.
Really important, and also for the non-state actors to heed the call. I mean, that's always, the essential domino that, makes all of them tower together. And speaking of that community engagement, how are you engaging with the community? Is it before you identify the projects? Is it in the course of the project going on? Is it on the other end to say, we've got this wish list of these projects we want to do in Ward 27? At what point is engagement going on?
So, since we are having a conversation around the budget, I'll try and match the budgeting process, because the consultations, before we actually solicit for their input into the consultation, we make sure that there is an explanation of people understanding what is it that we are expecting to hear from the residents. So that's where they come in and chip in to say we need to have a recapitalization of the recreational facilities. We need to safeguard the areas that are specifically meant for recreation. We need new schools. We need to make sure that we have boreholes that are being drilled. We need to make sure that we have expansion to our maternity wings. So all those capital projects, they then come into play. So these are areas where we say, how then do we connect with the community? So we use social media platforms as number one. Number two, we have meetings that we actually have at the community ward to say, let's meet up with the residents through organized meetings that were done in every ward. So there was no ward that was left. All the 45 wards, there were consultations to do with feeding into the capital projects, to do with feeding into the functions that we have that need funding in terms of service delivery.
I like the fact that it was all hands on deck, and so whatever comes out of that, so
Exactly.
when you hear someone then going against it, we tend to wonder, or are we saying we're not going to have situations like that because it was such a co-created concept?
I think the other challenge that we do have is that there is a tendency of people shunning away from technical issues in terms of the Zimbabweans. They always want to come into platforms whereby they are just speaking on issues that are not very technical. So when people hear the word budget, they will then shun away from the process. But that is the platform where they are supposed to be coming and airing out the issues that they want to be delivered in terms of council looking at projects. So once there is a gap in terms, there's no information that has been fed to say this is what we want, there's going to be a gap. Because it cannot be coming from the council. It should be council representing the residents. Once we have said this, I'll then follow up to say from Glenora, this is what we wanted. the residents said we should have A, B, C. So it's a follow-up to say, where are we? If we are then, if you then have the impetus to be on the plans for the next year, it's a plus to the ward. I always come with feedback to say, this is what we agreed in the previous budget, this is where we are, our funding is coming from A, and this is how we are going to be having our project.
So also, I mean, in that breath, answering the question I had around transparency and accountability. We are going to open up our phone lines now. Kuneva Terevedu, I get him Ward 27. Veku Ward 45 Councillor Avenue. I mean, but you can still come through. It's 0772 269 229, 0772 269 241. Okay, and the phones are ringing. Hello, good evening.
Ina ward 22 but azindeto kumbiro kuti kansela vaneni vatidaidziro wetu ishukubva paakangovoterwa takarambira tambomuona
mukoma iward ipi
ward 11 kuri kupondwa vanhu magetsi ari kuenda yatove dangerous zone iko zvino.
Oh no, vanonzani kansela venyu?
Totoziya akadyiwa wacho aizvikila uyu akahwina uyu angoti kuhwina achibva angoenda nanhasi hatitombomuziisa racho.
Hey, okay, I want to know if I'm yacho. Maybe let me ask Councillor Ninde, Councillor Ward 11 Mdiani, mnovaziva were. All right, we're going to take it up and tovaunza pachirongwa votsanangura kuti zviri kufamba sei. We definitely will engage him. Ndatenda zvangu. So you can also come through and let us know your issues. But I mean, this happens quite a lot. You know, we hear somebody saying, we saw this man or woman during the campaigning season. After that, we never, ever, ever saw even the back of their head, even the dust from their vehicle. Never again. What does community engagement mean to you in Ward 27? And are you also not falling into this trap?
Definitely. I stay in the ward as number one. The only challenge that was happening perhaps for movement going everywhere is that there is construction of the road. But I try by all means to be visible everywhere. When there are funerals, you go to different areas within the ward. When there are issues to do, just recently we're dealing with how best can we revive our library, and we're working around the community area where the library is situated. And there was a program which happened during the show week, which happened in the park, the recreational park. We were there, so we are trying by all means to be available.
To be seen and heard. Avaramba Councillor, and they said, I'm visible. You can call in on 0772 269 229 or 0772 269 241. Chirongwa Chenyu Vagari. Ward 27 in particular, Ward 45, or any other ward. Talk to us as we engage around community issues. Now, I've got messages coming in on the WhatsApp platform. This one comes from Comrade Takawira, who says, thank you so much for bringing the councillors in Rumbi. And he says, thank you, councillors, for coming. He talks about water, and says, kindly speed up the installation of boreholes. Area 401 needs your help ASAP. And then goes on to say, they voted for you in their numbers. Kindly fulfill your election promises. Havana mari, avangashaizvi mvura. Yeah, quite a passionate plea there. I know this is for Councillor Utete, but he does speak of a common issue. What is the status of borehole installation in your ward?
I think borehole installation, we are actually trying to make sure that it is inclusive of the things that we can perhaps do. But it's acceptance that there is failure in terms of provision of water. But perhaps let me dwell on two issues around supply of water. We have serious issues around contamination of our water bodies, and that means a huge chunk in terms of the chemicals that should be used in terms of purifying the water. Then number two, the issue to do with pumping of water to all the areas that are being developed, and the urban expansion matrix that I've also spoken about, and the issue to say the infrastructure that was there, the capacity of. That's why you see we have continuous space. So in other areas, the water is actually reduced in terms of pressure, so that we can maintain the pipes without being burst because of the incapacity of it to carry such water. But also, our Morton Jeffrey waterworks is not functioning to full capacity. It needs to be recapacitated. We have set on this. It was actually set on in the previous council, and there is a requirement of 25 million US dollars, which is not a lot. That's where the collaboration that I speak of in terms of infrastructure. What is Harare? Who is Harare? How do we look at Harare for $25 million? $25 million is not a lot in terms of ensuring that there is water supply for broader Harare. That is a short-term measure that they have our water coming from 350 megaliters to 550, which can ensure that in as much as we can ration water, but everyone will be receiving water in the different wards. But once we're at 350, it means we have a huge challenge in terms of the disparity, which also goes to 200 megaliters. That is a lot in terms of. Then also other issues come around people who then are having their constructions in undesignated areas, then they are disturbing the infrastructure of water. That has also been a problem. So when they do that, they run away because they've disturbed the pipes. Then you have base water pipes, non-revenue water. It will flow megaliters of water until it is addressed. So once you want to address that, because it's the main pipe, you then close water and people downstream will not be able to have the water. And the secondary issue now is the construction of other dams that will also help incapacitate Harare in terms of water. We have the Kunzi Dam project. It's a project that should be done at national level because it's outside the confines of the city of Harare. It's actually it's not in Harare. And we have the Prince Edward waterworks, which is in Chitungiza, which is it was also supplying water to the city of Harare at field areas and waterfalls and Chitungiza, but it has since been closed because of siltation. So there is upstream farming, and there is a lot of close to the river construction, and that has caused so much sand to be in the water, which has caused all those water bodies to be clogged. So there is need for deliberate effort, collaboratively from EMA, the city of Harare itself, the central government, in terms of ensuring that the money that is there is channeled towards having plenty of water bodies that will ensure that we have water in Harare. And once we do that, once we construct new dams for that purpose, it means our cost in terms of having water chemicals will then go on the downside. And these water chemicals are bought in US dollars. So we have a huge gap in terms we are receiving ZIC and they're supposed to get US dollars. The black market rate is way beyond 35, and it is on official rate, it's at 13.98. There's a huge disparity. So all those transactional issues will affect the city of Harare. And our revenue collection is at 35% at most. So that gap also in terms of revenue efficiency will also affect the supply matrix. But then that's why I was speaking about the collaborative effort.
Yeah.
The residents, they come on board in terms of payment. The central government comes on board of making sure that there is a construction of new dams. The city will ensure that there is provision of water through the waterworks that we have around Harare.
I certainly hope that that picture can be painted in that way, and I think that collaboration will certainly take the city of Harare further. One message coming in from Edward Mutsunge says, Rumbi, that councillor, I wish he was I wish he was the Minister of Local Government. Big up to him. I don't know if this is your friend who you've put up to this, councillor. But as we wrap up the conversation, Councillor Nende, what are your priorities for the remaining half of the year as Ward 27?
So basically, in my ward, I think there are issues to do with making sure that, especially the road networks, because there's been construction of the roundabout, the Mbudzi interchange. So now it goes past the ward. There has to be serious prioritization of ensuring that the roads that were being used as relief roads, because there was so much traffic in roads that were not meant for high traffic. So we have serious dilapidation of our roads infrastructure in the ward. But I'm very happy that in the budget there is a road. One of the roads has been adopted for reconstruction. Then the other issue is the issue to do with tower lights. We are having, I heard the listener who was actually complaining about mugging at night. That is also another issue. But we need to make sure that we have these tower lights being solar powered, because we have a crisis that is beyond the control of the city of Harare when it comes to power supply. That is ZESA. So we chip in as councillors to deal with ZESA issues, but that is outside our jurisdiction. But we chip in because we are leaders within the community. We just have to go to ZESA and say, can you please help us? We're having these challenges, whatnot. But also need to make sure that we have renewable energy sources, solar panels, and then the residents themselves. Because in areas where these have been installed, we have had serious issues of vandalism and theft. So we need the responsible residents when it comes to these issues, when we deal with street lighting. And also the other issue is the fundamental question of the economy. Once you address the economy, people are employed, you realize that we are going to have less cases of mugging, less cases of vandalism, because people are equipped in terms of economically.
Very true. You also touch on a very important issue on that: safety, personal safety, economic issues going forward. So quite illuminating there, and always a pleasure, Councillor, to interact with you. Your parting shot to the residents of Ward 27 before we let you go.
To the residents, I think the message is always the same. Let us continue engaging, and let us also be people who give feedback. I very often complain about people. They always come to you complaining, we have sewer. Once it is fixed, they don't give you feedback. Then you go to the employees, and you have your voice at the top of your voice, shouting to say, you have not addressed this issue. We have already addressed. We need that feedback mechanism. I've devised a system whereby we say there's a number which you communicate to. You take a picture, you show it. Once it's done, you also take a picture to show that this has been dealt with. So that once we have that, we will see our success rate, our efficiency in terms of dealing with the issues that we do have within the ward. And also there are issues to do with the feedback into the budget. Once it has been displayed for the 30 days, they must also make sure that they visit the district office to make sure that what they said at the budget consultation was taken a note of. If they were not part and parcel, it's also important that they come to see the things that were discussed by other people, so that if there is any material rejection and objection, it also suffices before we then approve the budget. Then they start blaming the councillors, the council, whatnot. Thank you very much.
Well, what a controversial statement to say as we let you go, Councillor. But thank you so much for coming in and for shedding a lot of light on the work you are doing, as well as the budget performance. Even when Jesus healed the 10 lepers, only one came back to say thank you. So I think it can be expected when dealing with your residents. Sagans, don't be like the 9 lepers. Please give feedback even when things are done in communities. Councillor Wumbarayeshe and Nende, thanks so much and good night.
Thank you very much, Mami.
The Exchange on Deep Dive.